Hello, everybody, and welcome to Economics with the Honorable David M. Walker. I'm Nick Palavita. I'll be your moderator today. I'm in Budapest, Hungary, so I'll be here most of the week at the NAPPI conference. But in the meantime, there's a very important issue that has hit the deck, which is, of course, the bombing of Iran. And we know that the USA is still a superpower. We have a writer of that particular book. Is USA still a superpower in 2040? And that is the Honorable David M. Walker, the former Comptroller General of the United States. He's going to give us an update of what he thinks about what's going on in Iran and the U.S. right now. David, this is a very important topic. I flew over here. There were flights that were canceled to Tel Aviv and Amman, Jordan, but my flight to Hungary worked from Barcelona. But it looks like it's going to have some major ramifications. What are your thoughts on
First,
Iran?
President Trump has stated for years that he opposes getting engaged in protracted wars, in particular where U.S. troops are committed. That's happened several times in the last several decades, and the American people are tired of that. At the same point in time, President Trump has also said for many years that he opposes Iran having a nuclear weapon, and he would do what it would take to try to prevent that. He gave Iran 60 days to be able to reach a negotiated settlement from a diplomatic standpoint, which settlement included a provision that evidently was unacceptable to the Iranians, is that they could not they could not have a nuclear weapon. They could not do enrichment, and there was no need for them to do enrichment because materials can be provided to them by other nations that are necessary for nuclear power generation. But quite frankly, they don't need nuclear power generation because they're sitting on a huge amount of fossil fuels that they don't need nuclear, like many other countries do, if you will. And so on the 61st day after Iran rejected a negotiated settlement, action started taking place. And in this particular case, the United States sent 7 B-2 bombers, which are $2 billion each, the most advanced bombers in the world. There's nothing to compare to them. Totally stealth, accompanied by a number of stealth fighters, F-22s and potentially F-35s. F-22s are by far the most advanced fighter in the world, who flew 18 hours to get to Iran. And they dropped 14 30,000-pound bombs. And the Navy, an Ohio-class nuclear submarine, launched, I believe, 30 Tomahawk missiles, focused on 3 targets where Iran was engaged in a range of nuclear activities. 2 of those targets, there were significant underground operations. Preliminary assessment is there was the huge damage done to all 3 facilities. The final assessment obviously will take a while before we get a sense, in particular with regard to the underground facilities. The real question now is, what's Iran going to do? Are they going to come back to the table, avoid further escalation, and try to resolve this in a peaceful way? The United States has no desire whatsoever to put boots on the ground in Iran. The United States has no desire to continue to engage in bombing activities with regard to Iran, but the U.S. is absolutely committed that they will not have a bomb, and they cannot have enrichment because there is zero trust with regard to the current government in Iran. I mean, they are the primary state sponsor of terrorism. They're responsible for hundreds, if not thousands, of deaths of U.S. military and civilian individuals over the last 20 years or so, 20, 30 years. And so we'll see what happens. The biggest concern is that they may try to close the Strait of Hormuz, which obviously, since about 20% of the world's petroleum goes through the strait, that would have a serious adverse impact with regard to supply and demand. It would result in an increase in oil prices. At the same point in time, the number one purchaser of Iranian oil is China, and they rely upon that very heavily. And so they would be seriously adversely affected if Iran tried to close the Strait of Hormuz. In addition, that would seriously adversely affect Iran's economy because it's heavily dependent upon, energy exports. And so time will tell. The U.S. is well positioned with 2 strike groups and a variety of other naval vessels, in the area that clearly could be used if necessary. I'm hoping this thing can get resolved in a peaceful manner, but the ball is in Iran's court, and we'll have to see what they decide to do. It's interesting because allegedly only about 20% of the Iranian population supports the current regime. And therefore, you would think with the kinds of things that have been going on, that there may be an attempt on behalf of the people to be able to overturn the current government, or even potentially the military, other than the Revolutionary Guard. But the problem is that the regime has all the weapons, and the people don't, and that's a fundamental problem. And it's also one of the reasons that no country in their right mind would ever try to invade the United States, because of our Second Amendment. We are extremely well armed. Back to the Revolutionary days, where a majority of the people who fought in the Revolutionary War in the United States were not Continental Army personnel. They were militia, which means regular Americans who bore arms, who came together in order to generate our independence. And by the way, next year is the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence for the United States, just like earlier this month was the 250th anniversary of the creation of the U.S. Army.
Now, you made a very interesting comment during this dialogue. It deals with Iran needing a nuclear program. Why does Iran need a nuclear program when they have more oil for energy? They have, if they need solar, they have plenty of solar power available. Why, other than building a nuclear bomb, does Iran need a nuclear program?
The answer is they don't, and that's one of the reasons why there's zero trust in this current regime. There's absolutely no reason that they need a nuclear program, and even if they wanted to have nuclear energy, they could obtain the necessary material from Russia, China, or even the United States to be able to fuel their nuclear energy program. And so there is no reason for it, and it doesn't pass a straight face test. And the real issue is, as you know, the Ayatollahs have said for years, death to Israel and death to America. And when you have people that publicly say those kinds of things for decades and have created a nuclear program when there's no need for a nuclear program, and combined with that have created a missile program which includes exploration of an intercontinental ballistic missile, which could not only affect the United States but also our allies in Europe and other places around the world. It's just an untenable situation. I wish we didn't have to do it, but we were the only country in the world who could do it, so we did it.
What do you think the ramifications from BRICS will be? It's like you said, China relies on their oil. When I was attending the CERAWeek, the gas and oil conference for the world leaders, great emphasis is always put on still using nuclear energy. It doesn't mean that you should be building nuclear bombs, but I think in some ways, a lot of countries, they do that as a means to have a protection. But what do you think the ramifications of BRICS can be?
Well, first, I would imagine if the Chinese haven't already, they ought to pick up the phone and call the Iranians and say that they shouldn't close the Straits of Hormuz because it will have a serious adverse effect on China, who is heavily dependent on Iranian oil. And secondly, it also would have a serious adverse effect on Iran because they heavily rely upon energy exports to fuel their economy. Russia obviously doesn't need to worry about it. Russia is an oil producing and exporting country, so they don't need to worry about it. In fact, ironically, if oil prices went up, it would actually help Russia in their war against Ukraine because they rely upon oil revenues to be able to fuel their military ventures. And so, the bottom line is that Iran doesn't have many options. I'm hopeful that they will come to their senses, get back to the bargaining table, and that we can avoid further conflicts. But
what do you believe could have been a better alternative than to airstrike their nuclear facilities?
Well, the better option would have been to come to a negotiated settlement, but they weren't interested in coming to a negotiated settlement. And not only were they not interested in coming to a negotiated settlement, within a couple of days of us taking this action, the Ayatollah again, stated publicly, death to Israel and death to America. I mean, when you don't want to negotiate and you're saying things like that, then, it's pretty evident. I mean, the president said that he was giving them he didn't say up to, he's giving them 2 weeks, but that he was going to give them the whole 2 weeks. Basically, the issue was, was there any credible chance that we could reach a negotiated settlement? Candidly, it was pretty clear to me that the answer to that was no. And so I think, it happened within 2 days because that's how long it took to finalize the plans to deliver the payload. And
let me ask you this. If somebody struck your country,
mm-hmm.
wouldn't you say death to them?
Well, that's after they struck, but that's not the situation. The situation is they said death to them before we struck.
And after. But what do you think this message is saying to the world?
They have been responsible for Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis. They have been responsible for, also terrorist groups in Syria and Iraq. They are responsible for hundreds, if not thousands, of U.S. Deaths over the last several decades due to attacks that they've made. I mean, we haven't attacked Iran. This is the first time that we've attacked Iran. And by the way, a vast majority of the activity with regard to Iran is being done by Israel, not by us. And the only reason that we did this is literally we are the only country in the world that had the ability to do it. We're the only country in the world that has the 30,000-pound bombs. Nobody, that's the biggest bomb that exists that's not nuclear. And you obviously don't use nuclear weapons. That's one of the whole reasons we got into this situation, because we don't want them to have nuclear weapons. And frankly, if it was up to me, Kim, I think we ought to I'd like to eliminate nuclear weapons, or as a more realistic alternative, to limit nuclear weapons to no more than, let's say, 300, which is mutually assured destruction. And right now, Russia has over 5,000, and we have almost 5,000. And China is in the hundreds and growing rapidly.
I fear the reaction that they're going to take along with their allies.
Well, I don't think their allies are with them. I mean, Russia and China have said little to nothing, and Russia and China don't want to take us on, and I think what was accomplished, by this attack demonstrates our capabilities. and is going to make them more reticent to try to get involved, if you will. I mean, Russia's got their hands full with Ukraine. They can't even handle Ukraine.
Yeah, they can't handle Ukraine. Hey, Dave,
What is the message from the rest of the world about this? The prime ministers, other people from around the world. What has been their messaging about this?
It's still coming in. It's still coming in. I mean,
well, we have Dr. Reina from Bangladesh. Maybe has some opinions what's going on in Asia. What are the reactions, Dr. Sharif?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Honestly speaking, how we see this Asian market, and as we have a lot of people in my World Talent Economic Forum around the Asia communities, especially from OIC. We are closely working with the OIC. Let's say I also doing my research work with IUT, Islamic University of Technology. It's a OIC funded university. How this USA attract Iran or Russia attract Iran, whatever it is, it's not logical at all, at least from the Muslim communities, at least from the Muslim world, the 57 Muslim world, they do not believe in this way. If you see our media, the Asian media, especially the Muslim world media and all of the things, most of the people has a very good sympathy about Iran because first, Israel actually attacked Iran. This is the reality. And secondly, how we see this Israel actually attacking this Gaza and Palestine. It's inhuman. And they are actually killing a lot of Gaza peoples beside this wire and all of the things. I think this is one of the imbalancing relationship, even though Trump visit 3 major Muslim countries, Saudi Arabia, then Qatar, and then UAE. Even though he seek lot of business and investment in USA, and they do a lot of business relationship and all of the things. But this complicated relationship in between Israel as well as this Gaza. On the other hand, how they making their relationship in between Iran and all of the things. Honestly speaking, Israel will suffer long time through this unstable and the wrong strategy, what they are doing these things. I request all of you, please focus on the global peace. It's not logical. You are producing nuclear weapons, and the world know that previously USA did the same things with Iraq, and they lied. They lie with the Iraq and all of the things. All of the Muslim communities know. This is not logical. People do not trust that Iran producing nuclear weapons, and for that particular issues, USA and Israel trying to make things neutral. You cannot control in this way. You cannot present world in this way. That is my logical and what I understand from the Muslim world. And the last show, you can see that same question I asked Talib Rafael. He is from Jordan. Jordan also very good strategic player for these things. I think you get the same answer what I'm discussing right now. I want to be neutral. I'm just giving them feedback what I get from.
Let me jump in. There is absolutely no question that the 3 countries that you mentioned that Trump visited with do not want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. They absolutely are opposed to that. Secondly, you are correct that the United States went into Iraq under false pretenses, should have declared war since it intended to topple the government, didn't do it, okay? It cost thousands of lives, trillions of dollars. It was a huge mistake. And our son fought in that conflict as a Marine Corps officer. Unfortunately, came back whole both mentally and physically. But the difference is while they were false assertions that Iran had weapons of mass destruction, there were no assertions, nor was Iraq making any attempt to develop a nuclear weapon. That's totally different. It was very clear that Iran was attempting to develop a nuclear weapon. Reasonable people can disagree. Reasonable people can and will disagree. on how close they were in being able to do that. But there's little question that that's what their intention was, because there was no need for them to enrich to 60%, which has already been proven by the IAEA that they had already gotten to 60%, which is more than you need for a nuclear power plant. And it's not that difficult to go from 60% to 90%, which is what you need for nuclear weapons. So, look, it's a very complicated situation. But
David, I have a question. This is Steve Rao. I have a question.
Yeah.
How did we get to this point? I mean, I'm worrying about the implications of, foreign policy. If we didn't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon, why were previous administrations working on the nuclear deal? Because I feel like, so there seems to be a disconnect of where the shift in U.S. foreign policy is. The president justified in saying, look, we're just going to go out and passively kick out,
well,
is there danger of retaliation? What does this do with Israel? I mean, there's so many unanswered questions.
I think the difference is that some administrations actually tried to give Iran the benefit of the doubt, ended up trying to deal with negotiations, lifted sanctions on Iran, released funds for Iran in the hope that they would see the light and change their ways. Trump is very different. In the first administration that he had, he was very tough on Iran. He doesn't trust Iran and still doesn't trust Iran. He believes that the deals that were done by the Obama and Biden administration were bad deals, that they enabled Iran to have enough money to fund their proxy forces, that they enabled Iran to be able to continue their nuclear activities. And, there's no question that Israel's taken the lead here. I mean, and as far as I know, the only thing that we're going to do unless we're attacked is what we've done, which is to do the thing that only the United States could do. And that was, dropping the 30,000-pound bombs.
Right.
We're the only country that has them. And you could say, well, gee, why didn't we give them to Israel and let Israel drop them? The answer is they don't have a platform to deliver them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, David,
Wow.
David, just
Scary
really
times.
quickly, different times and everything. David, just really quickly, because I am old enough to remember the Shah of Iran and all along those lines and everything. And we have had some government officials from other countries that have come back in power. I'm thinking about like the Philippines and the Marcos family and everything like that. But we also know that sometimes we don't like to interfere in other countries' social, religious lives and all along those lines. So I was just wondering, and I know some of this is speculative questions and everything. Do you think that there will be an effort to try to put together a Shah-like government? And should we be trying to get into the business of nation building, because that's what that would be and everything like that, and getting them out of the theocracy that they are in now? Because I've actually had the pleasure of interviewing a comedian sometimes back that was from Iran, and she talked about some of the injustices that they faced as women in that particular country.
Well, the crown prince of Iran is in exile. I think he's in the UK, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm not positive about that. I'm sure that he would love to be able to come back and reestablish the monarchy. My personal view is we don't want to be in that business. We've made enough mistakes at trying to nation build. We tried to do that in Afghanistan. We tried to do that in Iraq. That's not our business. It's the business of the people of those countries to decide what they want to do. We should only be focused on what are direct and material national security threats to the United States. And believe me, a nuclear-armed Iran would be a direct and material security threat to the United States, to our allies, not just Israel.
Yeah. I have one thing I just want to know from you, because there are some logical argument from my European friend and European ally. We find that basically this attack Israel started because Netanyahu wanted long-term power On the other hand, USA actually supporting his wish, just supporting Netanyahu's, and they also attract Iran. Because if Iran, like Netanyahu attack or Israel attack Iran, he can take this power long time, Israeli power, political things, and all of the things. Do you think it's logical, or what's your thoughts? Because most of even my European friend and many people believe in this way.
Well, Netanyahu is a controversial figure even within his own country. I mean, there are a lot of people in his own country that don't like Netanyahu. I have a lot of Jewish friends, both here in the United States as well as in Israel. And you may or may not know, there are roughly 700,000 U.S. citizens that live in Israel. They have dual citizenship, many. And so, that's another reason why we're concerned about Israel is not only are they a strong ally and the only democracy in that part of the world, but we've got 700,000 Americans that either full-time or part-time, in most cases part-time, live in Israel. Okay. Netanyahu is controversial with regard to the Jewish people that I know here in the United States. But as you know, Sharif, that in times of war, and clearly Israel and Iran are at war. The United States is not at war with Iran. We did a precision strike. We have not declared war. We don't want to end up having boots on the ground. We don't want to, we rather not get involved anymore. Okay, quite frankly, we hope we don't have to. But when countries are at war, people tend to rally around the leader, no matter who the leader is. Now, if it turns out that this thing can get resolved, where Iran comes back to the table and and we can meaningfully resolve this, then that could end up making Netanyahu vulnerable, because he is a controversial figure in his own country. But I think as long as war is going on, people are going to rally around the leader, whoever the leader.
David, you said that, and I've heard conversations on other news outlets and other things along those lines, because it was always my understanding that any attack, whether it was a precision attack or another kind of attack, had to have the approval of Congress. And I know a number of Democrats have brought this out, and a number of others as well, including some Republicans that are on the far right and everything like that. Yeah. So is that a misnomer that you don't have to have that?
Let's talk about that. There's a lot of misinformation and disinformation out there. We'll come to Chitovi after this because he's had his hand up. Okay. But first, the last time the United States declared war was December 1941. And yet we've had a few conflicts since then. Conflicts like the Korean quote unquote war, like the Vietnam quote unquote war, like the first Iraq war, like the second Iraq war, like the Afghanistan war. I put those in quotes because they were never declared war by the Congress. Okay. In the 70s, there was something called the War Powers Act, which was designed to try to limit the ability of the president to use force. After 9/11, there was the authorization to use military force efforts. Both of those say the following, that the president can, and the Constitution supports this, that the president can take actions as commander-in-chief of the military that he believes are in the national security interests of the United States. However, within 48 hours of the action, not in advance, within 48 hours of the action, he must notify the Congress, and then the Congress has 60 days to decide whether or not they want to limit the president's authority. In this particular case, as I understand it, the president had conversations with very few, I don't know how many, leaders of Congress, because Congress leaks like a sieve. And in order to ensure the security and safety of the forces that were engaging in these activities, in particular the pilots that were engaging in these activities, it had to be extremely close hold with regard to who knew about it in advance. And as you know, within 2 hours of the strike actually occurring, the president went on national TV and told the entire country, including every member of the Congress, Senate, and House, what had happened and why he did it. And so now the ball's in Congress's court. You know, Congress has the ability to decide whether or not they want to limit the the president's ability to engage in activities dealing with Iran. The ultimate power that they have is the power of the purse, what they're willing to fund. But there are other things that theoretically they can do. But the people that say that what the president did is unconstitutional or against the law are wrong.
So, Dave, my issue comes to, I guess, a few things mixed together.
Okay.
From the Netanyahu issue, for example, Netanyahu has been saying that about the nuclear, that they are this close, they are days away, they are years away, they're months away, they're weeks away from a nuclear bomb for more than 2 decades now.
Yeah.
That to me is an issue because even our own intelligence said that they weren't as close as Netanyahu stated. And so Trump was told that Iran wasn't that close to a nuclear weapon, but he went with what Netanyahu stated and decided to go that route. Then on top of that, Iran was in the middle of negotiations of this nuclear deal, exactly what we wanted, and we dropped bombs on them. So that already takes out the opportunity for any type of diplomacy because we go ahead and attack a country that we were in the middle of and already stated that we were trying to negotiate with. So the lack of trust that was at least somewhat built up is now gone completely. All right, and then if we look at the actual nuclear, the JCPOA, I think it was, that actually was in action and actually seemed to be working. And then now when that got ripped up, because many of Trump's ideas of ripping up individual deals that people did prior to him, for example, he's already looking at ripping up the asbestos deal or the asbestos bill that was put in place by Joe Biden just because Joe Biden signed it. So he does a lot of things out of spite. And
all right, hold on. Let me respond. Let me respond. Okay. All right. First, Tulsi Gabbard testified in March, which was 3 months ago, and a lot can happen in 3 months. All right. That they were enriching uranium, that she did not have evidence that the Ayatollah had ordered the creation of a bomb. All right. So that's the first point. But again, that's 3 months ago. All right. Secondly, the IAEA, which is an independent body affiliated with the UN, based in Vienna, confirmed that they had enriched to 60%. And we know, as a matter of fact, it doesn't take long to go from 60% to 90%. Whether or not they were doing it or not, I don't know that we know that, okay? But the fact is an independent party has said that they've gotten to 60%. We know it doesn't take that long to get from 60% to 90%, okay? With regard to negotiations, whether you like it or not, Trump made it very clear, and it's consistent with what Netanyahu wanted, but they're not the only ones that wanted it. Believe me, a lot of the Arab nations felt the same way, that Iran could not have a nuclear capability, and they could not be enriching uranium, and they could never have a bomb. And the Ayatollah made it very clear publicly that was unacceptable to them. So how are you going to keep negotiating? Okay.
Well, can I ask a question?
Just to interject real quick on the response piece. Mm-hmm. They didn't have the ability to create the materials for the actual bomb itself. So that's another piece. And the intelligence, yes, we know that they had enriched from the independent up to 60%. But we do not know how long it would take them for 90%. We don't know that piece.
Well,
and
well,
we do know they didn't have the actual.
Actually, we do.
We don't know they did not have the actual equipment to actually, service the bomb.
They have centrifuges.
They have the centrifuges to actually refine it, but they don't have the actual material to create the bomb, the actual carrying forces to create the missiles and the bullets, all the other pieces that go around it. They didn't.
Hold on.
But then on top of that, just to jump to, because you had stated that everybody else didn't want Iran. Nobody wanted Iran to have a nuclear weapon. So to argue that point is moot. To say that is stating that, oh, well, you wanted them to have it. You didn't understand. No,
nobody wanted him to have it.
So to argue that point makes no sense. What I'm stating to you is the JCPOA actually was working and it was actually doing something, but he tore it up. And as soon as he tore it up, what happened? They started enriching uranium, and that pushed the levels up higher. So he made the flaw in his first administration that put us to the point that we are now, but we're not willing to accept that. And that's the part that kills me, is why can't we just state the point that he made a mistake in ripping up the JCPOA and now trying to get us back into the JCPOA?
No, we just disagree. Okay. Secondly, we know how long it takes to go from 60 to 90. Okay. We know that. Okay. I'm not going to get into classified stuff on this podcast. Okay. But we also know they had zero reason to enrich uranium, period. We know that they enriched to 60%, which was verified by an external body. And there's no need to enrich to 60% for nuclear power generation. Okay.
Well, can I interrupt just a minute, because I am the one who attended the CERAWeek, world leaders meeting, and the number one resource that they claimed was uranium. And all countries are diving in to become part of a number one resource, to acquire it, to make it part of their lifestyles. The other resource is copper. So, maybe go out there and find out why, everyone wants copper. But to sit there and say, okay, this is the number one worldwide resource we need, especially at a world leaders meeting. And, oil is very necessary when you attend that meeting. Nuclear power is still a very resourceful, powerful energy resource, one of the best and oldest. So to sit there and tell someone in one breath that to be a wealthy country, you need to acquire more uranium, and then in the other breath say you're not allowed to, what? Maybe they were building bombs, and maybe they were just trying to be competitive in the global market for these minerals and resources. I mean, but I'm not going to argue with you, David. I'm just saying I think that there is a lot of chaos and overreaction to some things. And when you airstrike somebody with an unprovoked situation just because you said, if you don't stop this, I'm going to shoot you, that is no better than what Russia did to Ukraine. Okay? No better. It sends a very wrong message to the world, that we are nothing more than negotiating bullies. But until you can explain to me why we preach uranium is one of the number one world mineral resources to invest in, and now you're telling them they can't have it, I'm confused. I'm very confused.
First, if comparing what we did in Iran to Russia's invasion in Ukraine, I think is outrageous. Russia did a full-scale ground invasion into Ukraine, destroyed a tremendous amount of civilian places, killed civilians in large numbers, occupied the territory. We did none of that, and we have no intention to do that. Secondly, if Iran wants to have a nuclear power capability, there's zero doubt in my mind that Russia, China, even the United States would be willing to supply them with the material necessary to have a legitimate nuclear power capability, so they don't have to enrich anything. It will be enriched by others. All right. No doubt in my mind that could be a negotiated deal, if you will, but they already went well past what you need for a nuclear power capability, and nobody trusts Iran.
So just
Nobody
to,
trusts
just to
them, but
reiterate
are
what
you going to force them to buy from other countries something that they can build themselves when we're sitting here saying we need to be self-sustainable? I mean, David, I get you. You know what? We don't want other people building bombs. We don't.
Yeah.
But we have no right to tell another country whether we like them or not, whether we think they're evil or not. That is not my judgment. But we have no right to tell someone, okay, you can have that only if we provide it for you. I'm sorry. And at what expense? We know America charges ridiculous prices.
We'll let China and Russia give it to them. They're part of their alliance.
Well,
the
but
alliance.
it's not giving it to them.
The
It's selling
alliance,
it.
China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea, as I've said in my book, is real. It is economic. It is military. It is diplomatic. It is cultural. Let them step up. Let them deal with it. But let's see what's happening. They're doing nothing.
Well, I
let me
agree
ask-
that those
don't
other
have-
nations, Russia, China, North Korea, they are tied. As a matter of fact, Iran, the president of Iran is already in Russia right now.
Yep.
They're having
He's the
discussions.
foreign minister. He's the foreign minister, I think. But go
Oh yeah,
ahead.
foreign minister. I apologize.
Yeah,
But yeah,
right.
that's going on. But I think one thing that Kim pointed out, and this is what I tried to point out a little, but I guess I glossed over it too much. The distrust in the nation has skyrocketed now. So the championing of, oh, well, he faked them out. You literally said you would negotiate, and you were negotiating a deal. And as soon as you started negotiating the deal, you dropped bombs. And that crossed the red line for that one country. Don't get me wrong.
My last question for David, because
Jacoby gave him 60 days, and he can read
Wait, let me finish with that. The quote unquote 60 days.
Yeah.
Who bombed in the middle of the 60 days? The same group that you're buddying up with.
Not the U.S.
But Dave, you're ignoring that the U.S. and Netanyahu have shook hands. So
but
now
we can't control Iran. Okay? We can't control Israel. It's not, coming back to what Kim said. It's not our job to tell other nations what to do unless it affects our national security.
But
if they don't have to do it,
True.
There could be.
But why are we affecting their
we say
national
that-
security?
if we-
That's none of our business either.
Just like as Dave, we agree that Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran they shook hands and buddy, and we see that.
Yeah.
What do you think they see happen with Israel and the U.S.?
Oh, they see staunch allies.
So you telling me that, oh, well, we can't do. I'm talking about looking at it from the perspective of the other side. It's about trying to understand what they're seeing just as what we are seeing. So saying, hey, we aren't telling them what to do. We said we're going to negotiate. Then they bomb.
For a while.
Then they're still bombing, and they actually in the middle of the negotiation of that, after that quote unquote 60 days, which it didn't even sit 60 days, but after that 60-day period, we then go to them and say, hey, look, we're going to negotiate now. And then they tell us, please tell Israel to stop and we will negotiate with you. We allow Israel to continue to negotiate, to bomb, and then we go and bomb. So I'm not saying that, again, nobody wants Iran to have a nuclear weapon. So we can push that off. What I'm stating is the distrust that's now being built, that is now being solidified, not only in countries like Iran, but also other countries. Because if we get back to the economic side, the hostility that was created based off of the whole tariff situation, now you tie in this. what can other countries, how can other countries trust anything that we say?
Jacoby, we need to move on. All I can tell you is Russia, China, North Korea are part of the alliance. They already have nuclear weapons. Iran was moving towards getting a nuclear weapon. Candidly, I don't know any other country. I don't know any other country that's in that situation. And if you can tell me of one, I'll be happy to listen to you.
But I'm not talking about that. My question
I
was
am.
about.
I am.
No. But you said let's move along, and that's where I was moving to, because that's why I brought in the economics piece, talking about how the tariff situation was just as chaotic as what this is. So what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to point to, or my whole point is, based on what happened with the economics, chaos, distrust, based on what happened right here with this situation with Iran, that's still a distrust piece that's being built. So my whole question comes back to, when America now says they're going to do something, anything, how can any country trust the word of America if they can't trust it economically nor militarily?
I would respectfully suggest you got it backwards, okay? I would agree with you with regard to the tariffs, because the president didn't handle that properly. And we don't know how that's going to get resolved. And I do believe that that was destabilizing, and I do believe that it ended up having an adverse effect on trust. And we still don't know how that's going to get resolved. On the other hand, with regard to Iran, Trump has been very clear for 10 years, okay? That
everybody has.
Okay,
everybody said Iran. So that's why I'm saying take that off the table.
The only thing they might have been surprised at is that it happened in 2 days rather than 2 weeks. Because if anybody who had listened to him for the last 10 years, okay,
Dave, everybody.
Hold on.
Everybody said it.
Hold on. But my point is this: he did what he said he was going to do.
No, he said he was going to negotiate.
No. He said he didn't negotiate. He said he gave him 60 days. 60 days is over. That's it.
He said 2 weeks then.
Negotiation.
Can I ask you?
Hold on.
What did he tell them?
Hold on. I'm going to get off of this if I can't say what I want to say.
Okay.
He said he would. He didn't say he'd give him 2 weeks. What he said was he's going to give him. He's going to think up to 2 weeks is what he said. He said they didn't want to negotiate anymore. And they didn't, because the Ayatollah spoke publicly and said that what our demand was unacceptable to them. Okay, that's
what was the demand?
The demand is you can't enrich.
No, that wasn't the demand.
Yes, it was.
No, Trump put out, I need you to, the full surrender was the demand. That's what he said.
That was a supplemental. Again,
Dave, that's what he said.
Which in my view was ridiculous. Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, I mean, in my view, that was ridiculous. But and believe it or not, Trump says a lot of things that are ridiculous. Okay, but you have to understand that that's part of who he is. What he really cared about, and he's not the only one. A lot of other people, and you've already said this, Jacoby. Nobody wants Iran to have a nuclear weapon, and they don't trust them if they're enriching uranium, that it's only going to be for nuclear power purposes, because they've already gone well past that. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. Also, Dave, we got to come to North Carolina because we still got to go out for lunch, man. I'm missing you.
Mr. David, that is another news we get from here, that White House invite Pakistan general, and they have some sort of negotiations. Then the Pakistan general said they want to nominate Trump for Nobel Prize for global peace.
Right.
What's your thought? I just want to.
I don't know what all happened there, quite frankly. Okay. I mean, Trump says that he was instrumental in negotiating a settlement between Iran and Pakistan. My gut feeling is that he had a lot more impact on Pakistan than he did India. I mean, India and Pakistan, not Iran. India. Yeah, my gut feeling is he probably could. he probably put his efforts towards Pakistan, not India. And so maybe he did something that got Pakistan not to do something that otherwise they might have done. They nominated him. I don't know. What I will tell you is this: Barack Obama won the Nobel Peace Prize for nothing.
Oh, okay.
You name me what Barack Obama did to deserve other than, you know what the Democrats will say? He beat Donald. No. But because think about it, during his term, among other things, Russia took Crimea.
Yeah.
I mean,
I can tell you what
Obama was taken down.
I can tell you the reason he was nominated for the
he won it early in his term.
yeah, he won it at the very beginning. The
very
reason why
he had done nothing.
oh, I mean, what he did.
But nothing
what
is peaceful, if you ask me. Nothing is
what he actually did, and
They're quiet. They're quiet.
his actual movement was what he did, and his movement was was about inspiration and inspiring people to move forward, and that's what they took. And don't get me wrong, I don't think he should have won it. I'm with you on that.
We're done. We don't need to go any further.
But what I'm saying is the reason he won it was because of his inspirational movement that actually got a global movement of people trying to work together. And hey, look, let's look at each other and not attack each other.
All right, well, we're in agreement. He shouldn't have won it, but I hear you.
But I fear, right. I fear that the message we're sending out is a very bully negotiating tactic, and that he's trying to use fear, and which may work or it may not. But in the past, actions like these have done nothing but backfired on us. It's risen the gladiators in these countries, and they have been able to infiltrate our country, and they're going to blame us. They're going to blame us, and we're going to pay. And I personally think that there could have been a more peaceful way. And to talk about peace, my father walked me to a place where the most peaceful people are in the world, and that's in a graveyard. So, and he told me that because I always asked him, why can't we have peace? And that's where he walked me when I was young. And so sometimes doing nothing is very peaceful. I think a strong arm like this wasn't, and I have no idea what he threatened him with. In 60 days, I'm going to blow you up, or in 60 days, we're going to do a negotiation. I don't think that they believed that in 60 days they were going to have an airstrike against them. I don't. So I think it was very.
I think they were very naive if they didn't believe that action would be taken unless they were willing to negotiate in good faith about uranium enrichment. Because if it's true, they said they only wanted uranium enrichment for nuclear power production. If that was true, then we could have reached an agreement with them. However, their actions did not match their word. You did not need to enrich to 60% for nuclear power. And as I said, if they had said, okay, that's all we want it for, full and open inspection by IAEA, surprise, and they wouldn't allow that. They wouldn't allow that either. Okay. And as I said, in the end, if all they want is it for nuclear energy production, they could have gotten that from China. They could have gotten that from Russia. They could have gotten that from North Korea. They could have even gotten that from us.
But why are you complaining that they got it at all? If it is the number one resource,
it's not
that is to make a country wealthy right now. Why are you complaining about where they got it from?
Well, first, I don't believe it's the number one resource to make people wealthy.
Well, that's what they were preaching, that and copper. So
yeah, I don't know, but I mean,
well, I was there, so I mean,
well, I was at an energy meeting in Washington D.C. A couple of weeks after you went to that one. It was more convenient for me to go to that one, but the fact is that
nice.
There we go. All right, Jacoby. Didn't sound like you.
No, it was everybody out of school. So I got partners in here today.
Good luck, my friend. Good luck. I've been there, done that.
I'm gonna send him to Uncle Dave. You go hang out with Uncle Dave.
But Sharif, expound a little bit more about how this is seen in the Islamic community from your perspective?
I just want to give honest feedback because
That's what I want.
yeah, basically the Islamic community is how I see, because I closely work with this OIC and all of the leader. Yes, maybe front end they say many things, but how this Israel attack Iran and how they see this Philistine and Israel war.
Yeah.
Most of the Muslim communities, even Asian communities, many people from Europe and Africa, they do not like this approach. They hate war. Example, if you want to find out that who is the beneficiary from these things, maybe some politicians like Netanyahu, Trump, and all of the peoples, maybe some businessmen, those who get a lot of money through this process. Who will be loser? People like from the Muslim community, people from the Asian countries. Maybe price go up and all of the price and everything's go up and up, lot more unemployment and many problems. So nobody want war, but how this Israel and USA move aggressively, they are losing a lot of their friends. That is the things I want to share. They're losing a lot of their populations and a lot of the things, because even personally, I believe USA has open-minded people. USA has a lot of good people. Today we discuss a very constructive things. Even I share these constructive discussions with OIC, my friends, some vice chancellor, some army person, and all of the things. It's a very constructive discussion. USA has a lot of productive people and constructive and intellectually sharp people. But unfortunately, how they are taking last few months, lot of initiative, people lose a lot of their hope and trust and everything on USA. And they may lose their leadership in the global communities. Maybe China is rising.
Well, I appreciate your candid comments. And I also appreciate the fact that you're saying that the U.S. has a lot of open-minded people. All right. I also think that you understand that what one person does, while everybody is not equal, is not necessarily reflective of what the entire country thinks. All right. I myself can tell you, I've got a lot of friends in the Islamic community. I can also tell you that I've won the highest award that is issued by the president of Indonesia, which is the largest Islamic country in the world. All right. And so I think that we need to really come together and try to work to try to make peace happen. I personally think we ought to try to do everything we can to eliminate nuclear weapons, or at an absolute minimum, to try to limit them to a small number that would assure mutually assured destruction, nothing more. Okay. And I will do everything I can to try to do that. Let's just see how this thing shakes out. And I'm hoping that we can actually get a peaceful resolution in the near future, because God knows we all want one.
Yes, and with that, we're going to end our show.
Oh, I was going to say.
Oh, Jacoby has something to say. We have to.
The Vera Rubin Observatory. The Vera Rubin Observatory just released some new photos of space.
The United States. Jacoby, our progressive from Durham.
Take care, David. Take care.
Give me a call, Cam. Give me a call.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Nick, take care.